everybody. Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement. We are recapping 1923 Season 2, Episode 3 this week. Episode is Wrap Thee in Terror, and I think that is a very, very great name for this episode. So, hi, everybody. This is Marcy.
And I like to think I'm the guy that would tell you where to hide your money if you were traveling along in
Yes.
early 1920s, but I'm Tristan Jones.
With the helpful tips, and Frank should be joining us shortly. So again, this is an episode where we saw a lot of Alex, who we hadn't seen a lot throughout the season. We also saw some Elizabeth. We get a little bit of Kara, but this is really the women's opportunity to shine in this episode. So Tristan, real quick, what were your thoughts on this third episode of season 2?
Like you said, it was very Alex-centric episode. Like I said, the women are definitely the mainstays in this particular episode. I'm never going to complain about there being a lot of Alex on this show. But man, it was super uncomfortable television for a large majority of it.
Yeah.
It just kind of, for me, it stamps like this whole show is built off like anxiety. Like everything about the show keeps you on edge. We talk about, I've talked to Lisa about Taylor Sheridan, and like he's really heavy-handed with the messages.
Yep.
It's like, I want you to know women were mistreated very badly in this era. Like, across all classes, essentially, you see how women are second-class citizens, and that's definitely displayed a lot through Alexandra and to a degree Elizabeth's story arcs in this particular episode. But again, very good episode. You can kind of see more things progressing. We've been begging for Alex and Spencer to meet up at some point. It looks like it's headed that way within the next couple episodes. Fingers crossed, like they might Game of Thrones and put them on a different continent pretty soon. But very much like the episode. Definitely like the way how much women-centric it was, and the pace is starting to pick up a little bit. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think the pace was really great in this episode. I know Frank kind of mentioned in our chat that he felt that Alexandra scenes were a little too long. I thought it was fine, again, because we hadn't seen a lot of her yet. So I thought that pacing was good. And then eventually, like, it really moved the story forward a lot because she is finally in America. Like, she has landed. She's no longer on a ship. She's no longer on the ocean. So I thought that was really, really great. And then we see a little bit more of like Spencer, how he's going to hopefully get to Montana. But we'll talk about that later in the pod. But the episode starts off kind of a continuation of some suffering of a woman, the nurse who was attacked by that wolf. Obviously Kara was able to kill the wolf, but not able to save the poor nurse. But now they've got the wolf just kind of up there as a symbol to, I guess, maybe other wolves or mountain lions or any other predators that want to come. Tristan, just kind of tell me a little bit about what you thought about that scene. And then we see Elizabeth again, and she's still kind of really stressed out about these rabies vaccines.
Man, like, just it shows like how primitive a lot of these methods are. Like, I don't know what to do when a wolf attacks. Like, I'll hopefully never know when a wolf attacks my home. And like just the methods to like prevent, further wolf attacks, other wildlife attacks. Like, it just showed like I guess the larger theme of the show is that everybody, to a large degree is at war, not just with like each other and like the times, but you're at war with the elements. You're at war with nature. And like, you have to adopt those warlike tactics. And just, stringing up that wolf is just, that's an example of that. Like, this is what you do in the wild. Like, hey, I'm gonna leave this out, So, this is what we do to roaches or spiders, like mosquitoes. I'm gonna leave this out just so you know. But we also know that wildlife, especially in these conditions, don't respond to stuff like that. Like, this is desperation. Like everybody's desperate to a degree. Like
Yeah.
Carol and Jacob are desperate to hold on to the life that they built, you know, the normalcy that they have, the home, the legacy that they're trying to build. Elizabeth's desperate to find or get back to her comfort zone because this where she is now isn't comfortable for her at all, and not she may just not be built for the danger. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's searching for something. The wolves, everything. Like there's no food. Like they're desperate, and it's areas that they normally wouldn't go. And like that's such a big metaphor for the rest of the show.
I agree. Yeah. And I'm also assuming it's so that no other scavengers or predators want to come and eat that dead wolf. So kind of preventing just kind of more unfriendly critters coming and just kind of potentially attacking you again. But you know, we still see Elizabeth really, really struggling, not wanting to get that vaccine until again, Kara has to bitch slap her pretty much to be like, hey, do you want to be sick? Because this is what can happen. Like we've seen what these wolves can do to this woman who is sleeping inside of our lodge and she got eaten. So you can't just say that you don't think that the wolf is rabid when it probably is. So kudos to Kara for just kind of like bringing her back down and being like, hey, these are the facts. You either want to survive or you don't, but you've got to like woman up, put your big girl panties on, and just kind of tell me what you want, because I can't just keep playing these games with you. I'm trying to keep everybody alive, and I'm also worried about my husband and our nephew that are hopefully not caught in this snowstorm.
Yeah, it's again. Elizabeth's been through some tests since marrying her husband. These are a lot of tests. You know what I mean? Like these are a lot of tests from being shot to, losing a baby to wolf, animal attacks, like just the constant threats. Like this is absolutely not the life that she thought she was getting. And like no amount of, preparation could have gotten her there either. Like no amount of like verbal, at least preparation, like, hey, this is what it's going to be like. You have to go through that. And what I think the Duttons underestimate about a lot of other people is that, at least at this point, the Dutton family, like family legacy, like this is something that's been passed down.
Yeah.
It's like this is what we do. We survive throughout these trying times. Like we survive off the land, like we protect the land. Like this is something that is ingrained in us because it's been taught. And she's new to this life, new to this family. She doesn't have the same pride over what needs to be protected, over the legacy, the family, the land, all these different things. So, and you add to that, she's come up in privilege. So I think we'll find out, very quickly, like how verbally, she's kind of said like, this is her breaking point. Like this is not the life she asked for. But it is interesting to see like how far she's willing to go, before, these shots run out. Like, is she willing to go through with it? Is her love for, I keep forgetting, so many J's.
Yeah.
Is it Jake?
I think it is Jake.
Okay. Yeah. Her love for Jake. Like, is that love strong enough? And like, again, like maybe it'll take one more test for her to see, okay, this is where I need to be. But it's looking right now that, she's looking for, my question, how the hell is she getting out of there? Like, is she going through the same snowstorm that they went through to get home, just to get to a train station?
That's
is she traveling alone? Like, I have so many questions about her plan to get back. But
that's a great question. I think it's just kind of like teenagers or kids when you throw a tantrum and you're like, I'm going to run away from home. And it's like, how are you going to do that? So I think it's just kind of like her tantrum, but she is an adult. So I think maybe she's also come down with rabies. Who knows? But I don't mean it to sound like just Elizabeth hate. Like, it is okay if that is your breaking point and you want to leave. Like, that is fine. Like, acknowledge that. But I think it's a really good, like, just showing the difference between Elizabeth and what she's had to endure and what is kind of like looking like her breaking point. And then Alex, right? Like everything that she's also had to endure, and she hasn't come to a breaking point yet. So I wonder if Taylor's intention is really trying to show the difference between these two women, and just kind of like maybe wanting to send the message that Elizabeth's not really down, but it is okay if that is your limit. Like that would probably also be my limit, to be
Yeah, man,
honest.
there's so many larger things that he's saying about not just family, legacy, but love.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you can make the argument that Jake and Elizabeth met on more traditional terms. I don't even say you make the argument. They did come together. Their union is based on more traditional terms, whereas Alex and Spencer, look more like a fling. From the outside looking in, like this is something that everybody around thought was going to be a phase for both of them. And like they are legitimately committed. Like you want to talk about some obstacles, I mean. Getting shot is very bad. Getting shot, it's a bummer. You know what I'm saying? Getting bit by a wolf is a bummer. Yeah. Losing a child is a bummer. Like, I don't know if I could compare that to, being stalked and almost eaten alive by like several lions, and hyenas, and getting knocked over in a little buggy by the largest elephant we've ever seen. Like, surviving the ocean, surviving a duel to the death. Like this is so many things happening. This is just season 1,
Yeah.
But again, that love, that union perseveres. And maybe you could. This is an illustration of like how strong their relationship is, but on the side, it's also an illustration of like how far each one of them is willing to go to get something done. You know, and Taylor Sheridan is drawing a clear parallel between Jake and Elizabeth. Like, essentially, these are like two kids.
Yeah.
Who, even though, like you said, they came together, their union is based more on traditional terms. They also have like this childlike way of kind of going about things, and they don't really have the maturity or life experience to understand. Okay, I'm desperate for this person, and I'm willing to do whatever to get them in.
Yeah, and I think because I believe at this point we still don't know who are the parents of, I guess, John Dutton's father, right? Like we don't know like what the lineage is. I think a lot of people are probably rooting for it to be Spencer and Alex, but I would not put it past Taylor to give us like to swerve us and be like, nope, psych, it is somehow Elizabeth and Jake, and everybody's gonna be like, for real? Like, no, like John Dutton and Beth, and Casey cannot come from like Elizabeth and Jake. They're not hardcore enough. But I believe Frank is joining us now. Hey Frank, how's it going?
What's going on? What's going on with y'all? How y'all doing?
Doing good. We were just talking about the difference between Elizabeth and Alex and how much they are willing to tolerate for love, basically.
Yeah, I mean it's a very interesting parallel between the two women. I think I said this the episode before, is that the main difference that I've seen, or that a lot of people have seen watching the show, is that with Alex, she runs to the problem. Like, she has no problem facing it head on. She understands his life. She embraces it, and she embraces it for love. Like, the mundane life that she lived prior to that, with, I guess, the English count that she was with before. She had glitz and glamour and money and resources and all this kind of stuff, but it was more so off a title and not for love. It looked like it was more arranged and everything. And you can tell she wanted excitement. She wanted an adventure. I mean, I'm sure she wasn't ready to sign up for all of this that she's facing, but for the right person, she's willing to sacrifice it all. As for Elizabeth, and let me say, Elizabeth's not wrong for how she feels. Like, I'm not saying that she's wrong and that Alex is right. A lot of it's just relative and what you're willing to, walk through the fire with. And I think for Elizabeth, this is very new territory. she's not of this life. She's not accustomed to this life, and she's going through hell. And it's like, for her, it's not worth the trouble. She's already been shot. She's been bitten by a rabid wolf. She almost got eaten up by a cougar. Like, this is all within the first 10 episodes of this series. And I mean,
cool already. I went through all of the shit she went through in season 1 and forgot all about this cougar. Literally,
just
an episode.
It's a lot for any person to put up with, and like, I think for her, and she's young. I mean, I don't know how much younger she is than Alex, but if you're not used to this life and all this comes at you at 100 miles per hour, you start second guessing whether or not this is all worth it. And that's something that, she has to answer for herself moving forward. And again, if she decides to leave, she's not wrong. It's a lot for anybody to take.
I agree. And I think good for her for maybe realizing that now, because, and I think now a lot of women are like, you know what? I've had to struggle.
I'm sorry, I forgot one thing. And she lost a child. I'm sorry. I forgot about that part. Yeah.
Now, I think just a lot of women are realizing, like, I don't need to go through struggle love anymore. Like, I've done it. It's great, but I don't want that for myself anymore. So, like, maybe she doesn't want struggle love, and that's fine. Alex does. And that is why she went on this voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. I believe it was a month long where she was like the journey. So we finally see her get to America. Frank, how did you feel when you finally saw her step off the boat and be like, okay, like, now we know that she's finally in America?
For me, I'm hoping that the 1923 universe, mainly white people, see how the hypocrisy of this country and the hypocrisy of like how they view and run things. Even with the whole immigration process, like, they treated her like a second-class citizen. This is a woman of high financial value, comes from a wealthy family, and for Alex herself, she got a lesson of how it feels like to be treated like a second-class citizen. I don't know if she necessarily needed that lesson. She comes off as a very humble and very well-rounded person, but the harsh reality is this country that she's embarking on, what she's read in the newspapers in London, and what this whole moniker of like, come here and reshape your life and have this new opportunity to be somebody. It's, on all accounts, is almost folklore. And she found that out, in on her very first day there. And I thought the scene was a little bit too long in totality with the doctor and like the immigration process. I thought it could have been, you could have sold that story in half the time within the first 15 minutes, not the first 25, 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. But I think it was very important for people to see, especially the patriotic people, the Make America Great Again people, the whole like, oh, America's always been great. Like, this is what it was. And this is for a white woman. Like, imagine how it was. England. Exactly.
Like, yeah, like.
So imagine how it was.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, sorry, Frank. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So imagine how it was for like a Black person or an Asian person or a Hispanic person trying to, get vetted through this process. So she went through hell and high water.
Mm-hmm.
I think so much of this universe, particularly with the prequels, 1883 and 1923, so much of it is about like smashing like the romanticism of this time, right? Like the Western expansion, like, hey man, everybody just packed up and went looking for gold and an opportunity. And it's like, no, like it brought out the savagery in people, which was already kind of there, you know what I'm saying? And like it expanded it because they went into these territories where there were hardly any laws, hardly any like real civilization. And like, this is a true story of what happened around that time. And we get to the 20s, like, yeah, women are still second-class citizens. Mm-hmm. They don't even have a right to vote. This is 1923 technically. So shit, we got like 5 more years. 1928, before, women's suffrage. Really, no, that was in the 30s. Like we're still a decade essentially away from like, full women's suffrage. And we romanticize, people have romanticized, the immigration policy process, like you said, coming to this country, seeing the Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island and all these things. It's like, no, actually, like this was, especially for women, God forbid, traveling alone. Like this was a nightmare, what I'm saying, just to get into the country and then to face like a different level of horrors, potential crime, all these different things. Like, again, we see an effect of a developing nation. A nation is what, 150 years old at this time? Like this nation is still young, and more people are coming to this, to the United States at this time from different countries, poor, middle class, the wealthy immigrants didn't get treated like that, right? We know this to be fact. So her traveling along without the security of a man to like validate who she is, like opens her up to like a whole bunch of different potential dangers. And I mean, we see at the end of the episode, like another one, sure to happen. And let me just say, if something happens to my girl, I will burn this bitch down. Okay. I will burn it down. But yeah, like we have to stop the romanticism of this. Like there's never been a time where entry into America or entry into like the middle class or just a different class in America has not come with some type of danger, for anybody not named, Protestant white people. So I do appreciate, even heavy-handed as it is, and that's, like you said, that scene was long as hell. But these scenes only on this show only feel that long because it's so uncomfortable. Yeah. And they don't really spare. That's true. If Taylor Sheridan wants to make the point that being a woman at this time, coming into this country, going through this process, was a emotional and physical like humiliation and terror, then he's going to drag that all the way through. Like, I'm not skipping anything to make this point. I want you to know, I want to go overboard and let you know how fucked up this situation is for women. So very long scene, but like also kind of necessary.
Yeah, I think you all both make great points about just how important it is, again, for people to see this and be like, oh, especially if, like, oh, my ancestors came here the right way. Well, like, what was the right way, right? Like the right way for the rich people that were on Alex's boat was they just got their visas or their papers at the US embassy back in London. So like they did it that way. Alex just got on a boat. She didn't even know what the process is. She just thought she was going to land and then they were just going to like welcome her in. Unfortunately, that's not what is going to happen. At this point in time, like people from Asian descent couldn't even like immigrate. Like Chinese people were completely excluded from immigrating. Japanese people, there was a gentleman's agreement, so they weren't even allowed to come. The only Asian people that were allowed to come were from the Philippines because they were a U.S. territory. If you came from Europe, you better have come from Western Europe because then you'll like get treated nicer. But if you came from Southern or Eastern Europe, like they were not going to be nice to you. So I think it was hard to see Alex go through that, but it was better than what other people from other parts of the world, when they would have come, like what they would have encountered, especially again, if they didn't speak English, right? Like first thing they ask her, she gets off the boat, do you speak English? Like, of course I do. And instead of like building a type of rapport with the immigration officer, he was just like, you know what, if you're going to give me some type of attitude, you can just go back. So I think that was such a shock for her to be like, oh, okay, this is not going to be an easy experience. And then also still having the privilege of, like, you arrive, you don't even have like any paperwork to prove like what is your name. Like they just took her word that her name is Alexandra of Sussex, and they're like, is that your last name? And then she's like, well, no, I'm married, I'm Alexandra Dutton. Again, she didn't have to like present any paperwork. They were just like, okay, whatever. Which is definitely not what anybody would encounter nowadays. Frank, Tristan, anything else to add about just kind of Alexandra's entry into the U.S.?
For me, I mean, I was a little bit ignorant to the whole like medical process at that time. I forgot. I mean, this is 1923, so there's no ultrasounds, there's no like sonar medical technology to like show, even to do like a regular physical. Just watching that was just so uncomfortable. Like seeing how she was being treated, being the doctor. I won't get into the nitty gritty what happened because y'all saw, but like just the mistreatment and how she was being handled throughout that process. This is a white woman from England, and I just kept thinking to myself, this is horrible treatment. Imagine this is a somebody of color, and what they were going through during this time. It's just how unsanitary that process was during that time too. I was just utterly shocked. Of course, I know the time period, but I guess the nuances of like technology and like how things were done by then, it's just a quick reminder how like just slow we were to technology and processes at that time. Just as far as sanitation as well, it was just eye opening to see.
And like my last thing is like one, the cruelty, right? Like the lack of. Like you could see like the way they viewed people they perceived to be of like lower class. Like I remember reading a book during grad school about essentially the Victorian era. So like not even that, but like there was a period where again, when so many immigrants from these different countries, especially Southern Europe and places like that were coming in, like there was a big campaign from people who were already here, even if they were from those same countries, to like to assimilate them into like American culture, like to unmongrel them and civilize them and all these different things. And you hear a lot of that language here. Like, hey, America does not need more prostitutes. It doesn't need more bums. It doesn't need more mongrels. All these things. Like there's the class war, even amongst the white people, right? Even amongst, like I said, people from fellow immigrants, same country. Like I came here 20 years ago, but I've assimilated into white American culture, and this is what it should look like. And there's you see the resentment between now citizens of America and people coming in, regardless of what their intentions are or whatever, regardless of what they look like. It's like, okay, we made it in, now we want to close the door for everybody else. And the last thing is like, I think about the women of that time. Hell, it happens to this day, but especially during that time, like the women who, like I said, like she has stated repeatedly, I'm going to meet my husband. I want to meet my husband. Like you think about like all the horrors and stuff that she had to deal with just in that medical room that a lot of women just are too humiliated to tell people about and like have to carry those things like that. That was the biggest thing to take away, because I can't see her telling Spencer about this process. You know what I'm saying? Or anybody else. Is just like, this is something I have to do and something I have to deal with. And it just goes to like the overall cruelty towards women in this world, especially around that time period.
I'll tell you what, I hope she has an ARIA list of names that she can give back to Spencer, so Spencer can backtrack and whoop all these motherfuckers' asses. That's what I kept saying to myself. All right, you're John. Okay, you're John Smith. Okay, the doctor. All right, this whole immigration officer. His name is Stanley Johnson. Okay, bet. I'm just taking down names. I was so pissed off at that process. I was literally looking up the casting IMDb of each actor and actress, doing that from the nurse that was in the room with that doctor, that first doctor, to the immigration officer with the lipstick on his goddamn collar. I was pulling up names. I was just so infuriated about what this woman was going through and how the amount of savagery she was being treated with.
I agree that I guess that first doctor that examined her, I already hated him because he was like a bad guy on like an episode of Castle one time. And I was like, oh, this motherfucker. He's definitely not going to be nice because he's got a punchable face. But yeah, I mean, I think like for women, our exams are not very like pleasant. Even now when we have like all the medical technology and like we go to doctors, hopefully that we trust, right? In this time period, those people were not to be trusted. Like you mentioned, Frank, there was no sanitation, and he talked about like, all of these immigrants coming in here with their diseases. Do you not think you're spreading their diseases around by like examining them with no gloves and just kind of like rinsing off your fingers in that basin. Like,
the Spanish flu was literally in 1919, just 4 years prior.
Thank you.
What
Yeah.
are you
And
talking
just
about?
like, let me examine you with like, raw dog examining you. And then just kind of like, that made me gag. But I also liked that for Alexandra, they made her, I guess, like grow her armpit hair and her leg hair out to be like symbolic of that time period where women were not shaving their legs or their armpits. I was like, okay, like nice, like historical accuracy there. But she was finally able to meet with the immigration officer and just kind of like outsmarted him, right? Like, he's like, you're probably stupid and you fell for this line that some American told you that he's got a ranch and like, do you believe him? And then she just kind of like put him in his place saying like, hey, you all like have all of this propaganda everywhere. Like, hey, come here and like we'll welcome you with open arms. And that has not been the case. So I'm glad that she was able to just kind of put him in his place. Did you all have any other thoughts on just that scene with the immigration officer with that lipstick on his collar?
I mean, for me, like that's just kind of where the privilege, some privileges some privileges you get to enjoy. Like we talk about privilege so much, we're like, hey, you know what? I got this privilege for a fucking reason. Like her being able to not only recognize like a Walt Whitman poem that she knew prior, like and just kind of spit it, and have like the wit to and something I think that's going to serve her well on her continued journey, and even when she, hopefully gets to Montana, is just her ability to be observant and to kind of see like the large picture, like to notice the lipstick. Like I'm sure she clocked that before she sat down. And that just kind of gave her a picture of like, this is who I'm dealing with. This is how I need to attack this particular situation to get through and to get over. Like she's, again, the juxtaposition between her and Elizabeth, just the understanding of surroundings. Even though she comes from privilege, like she still has that street sense. Okay, I know how to work in these social settings to ultimately win. So she's gonna need it next episode. Like I can already tell, but like she's somebody I continue to have faith in as far as her character because of those things. Just the will to make things happen and the observance and the self-awareness, the spatial awareness to understand potential threats and how to act.
Mm-hmm. And we're so glad you're finally here, Alex.
Yeah, I want to add to what Tristan's point about the street smart. I'll take it a step further. I think Alex picked that up from the moment she spoke to that lady prior to going to that office. Wow. I think when she realized the cruel world that women had to operate and adjust just to make it survive, that I thought that conversation between her and that woman was so needed because it gave Alex that perspective of what she needs to do or what she might have to do to even just get out the front door and step on this American land. That conversation was needed. Like, I mean, that woman was talking about, what do you have to barter with? What can you use to against his men? I know what I can use. And like, as she gets up, she goes into the room and like, and at that point I think I saw Alex's mind click like, okay, I bet I just noticed what women have to do just to get out of here. I think when she walked into that room, when she saw that lipstick, prior to that, I don't think if Alex didn't have that conversation with that woman, I don't think she would have connected the lipstick to what actually goes on in the immigration process with women and immigration officers. I think that little 30-second conversation she had and slapping that woman and seeing that woman go into that room gave her that mindset like, okay, I know what's going on here now. Because I don't think she knew how things move and how things will operate until that conversation with that woman. And to me, that's
my one pushback to that is, again, this is a privilege of coming from privilege. Like this isn't the first time you've seen a man in power, try to use, or you may have heard about it. You may have seen it happen from afar. Seeing a man use his power in order to like get over on a woman, you know what I'm saying? Or just regular ass infidelity, like all them dukes and counts and whatever the hell, all them dudes, most likely, had concubines on the side, whatever. Like this isn't she has enough worldly awareness because of her privilege. She may not have seen it up close and like had it like, had to kind
That's
of
what I meant. Like up close and personal. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, then I totally agree with that. Like she may not have had to like use that awareness, use that knowledge, but I'm sure she has at least some secondhand understanding of it. Like it's not the first lipstick she's seen on a collar. Like being in privilege, like a lot of poor women probably haven't seen a dude in a suit. You know what I'm saying? They don't probably haven't interacted with it. So I don't think she was caught off base, but I do think, like you said, having that conversation just kind of snapped her into like, okay, this is what it is. I need to go into that mode in order to get through this situation.
This is no longer the polite, aristocracy settings that I'm used to in England. Like this is brand new and I'm going to have to adapt. So I think she's doing a good job. Again, we see her. She gets some really great advice from a street vendor who's selling, I believe, maps and probably newspapers. I was so happy that it was an old Black man that was giving her like all this good advice, because as we could see, the white men were not to be trusted. So I'm like, I am so glad that this older gentleman is giving you just some pointers. And again, he said like, nobody is going to be nice to you just to be nice. Like they want something from you and you gotta be smart. And she's like, well, you're being nice. He's like, I'm too old to be anything else. And I chuckled when he said that. But again, just kind of like foreshadowing of like, girl, it's going to be dangerous. Put your money in your shoe. Don't just kind of like try to be friendly and talk to everybody. Frank, what were your thoughts on just kind of like some of that advice that he was giving her to just hopefully set her up to not get robbed?
That conversation I exactly took it as foreshadowing. I figured something was going to happen in that very episode or next episode. I mean, this is what it's Philadelphia, New York.
New York.
So this is New York in 1923. This is a very new city. That's bubbling. We're just coming out of, the Gilded Age. So it's still a lot of money there, but also it's still a lot of destitution and poverty there. And when he said that, I was like, fuck, something's gonna happen to her. I just know it. Cause like you don't give this long scene of her going through what she's going through, and then one of the most friendliest, non-threatening men say that and nothing come out of it. Like that's not how Taylor works. Taylor's gonna give you nuggets of foreshadowing and hit you inside the head with some real shit. So when I saw it, I automatically got sad. I'm like, this is probably the last friendly face she sees until she gets to Montana.
She gets more like warnings and more advice when she gets to the train station, right? And the guy that's selling her the ticket, he's like, hey, now that you've shown everybody your hiding place, now you've got to pick a different hiding place because everybody in this train terminal just saw you do that. Tristan, again, what were your thoughts on that whole encounter when she's at the train station trying to get her ticket to hopefully get home?
I thought the same thing Frank thought. Like, this is obviously foreshadowing. If you've seen any of like the previews, for the rest of the season, you see like there's some immediate danger involving men, on her journey. Like she's not through with, obviously the bumps, the obstacles in order to get to Montana by a long shot. But I think it's a good, like I say, juxtaposition between, all the different types of dangers that she's faced. Like there hasn't really been too many people to kind of step in and try to help out in any type of way. Like for the most part, her and Spencer, they've been kind of like on their own throughout this entire thing. Even when they're together, it's like, okay, it's them against the elements, them against nature, them against wildlife, them against jealousy, pride, all these different things. Shout out to that dude. Like I said, like the way that the show paints people around this time period is like so. Again, this is after Western expansion, so like there's such an individualism amongst so many of these characters. It's like, hey, I have to get mine. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's scrounging. Like I started off this episode talking about like desperation, and like everybody's desperate for something. You know what I'm saying? Without really the resources it means to get to it easily. You know what I'm saying? So like to see somebody just kind of take a step from that, it's like, hey, I recognize you are in a very precarious position, being a woman, married or not, traveling essentially across the country in a country you've never been to. You know what I'm saying? Like here's some pointers, like just the small pointers of like, watch everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, once you have a hiding spot and you expose a hiding spot, pick another one. Like, these are just things that she's learning that honestly, I feel like a larger metaphor is for what she's going to learn when she gets to Montana, hopefully when she gets to Montana. But it was very good to see like just some decency on the show, because you get kind of overloaded with like, again, this individualistic, selfish mindset of like, I need to get this and I'm willing to harm this person or kill this, harm his family, whatever, to get it done. So I think he just gave us some prescient advice that unfortunately is probably going to come in handy very soon.
Welcome to being a woman in America, Alex. Not a lot of things have changed in 100 years. So that's great. Leaving Alex for a little bit, we also see Tiana's father finally comes across the cowboys in the ranch and says, hey, like, we didn't know we were on your land. Sorry about that. We can either help you like herd or we can get off the land. The cowboy says, like, hell, like, help us if you're there. So I'm not feeling a little too trusting right now, again, just because of everything that they have been through. But Frank or Tristan, can we trust these cowboys, or do you think maybe they've got like some deeper, darker motives?
I think the trust is conditional. I think if the minute that one, if not that rancher or somebody in his ranching crew sees those wanted posters and sees how much money is that Tiana's worth, they're gonna put two and two together and try to turn her in. So I think one thing about the show that it shows you is that everybody's usable to a fault or to a point. And if I could use somebody, and I think Whitman is not Whitman. Whitfield. I think Whitfield's a classic example of that, of like how everybody's usable. And if you're not usable, you're not useful to me, I'm gonna cast to the side. Like, or if there's no financial gain to your value, then I'm gonna cast you aside. And yeah, like I'm sure he doesn't mind the extra hands to wrangle cattle or whatever, but like if he sees how much she's worth and he puts two and two together, he's gonna turn around without a shadow of a doubt. Because again, like Tristan said, in this time, even now, but especially in that time, we're approaching the Great Depression. It's all about how can I get mine, and how can I come up, and how can I help my family get up. And I can't remember how much Tiana was worth, but if I can get $400 or $500 American dollars to turn this woman in, and probably get extra for turning in the father and the little boy too, I'm gonna do it. So I don't think they're bad people, but I think everybody in the story are opportunists at one point or at one level.
And whiteness will always protect whiteness. Like, I think that's the so like, yeah, money is obviously a large motivator, but like whiteness can speak to whiteness in a way that even like money can't even speak to it. You know what I'm saying? Even common human decency can't speak to it. So I think from the original conversation, they sound trustworthy. Like, I think they have good intentions right now. But like I said, like, it's all conditional. You know, obviously the marshal and the priest are like uber motivated to like get this done. They're going through states they had no plans of going through. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're willing to take this all the way to fucking Mexico, you know? So like, they are determined. So like, they'll put whatever. I wonder if the female marshal, Jennifer Carpenter's character, forgot her name, but I wonder how much of a resistance she's willing to, what she is going to put up, you know, after she's kind of processed everything that they've done to other people to get to, you know, fugitives. So you could trust them for now, but not really. Like it's all conditional.
I'm very interested to see that marshal and how it get, like, will she side with the Native Americans and be like, okay, like, yes, maybe Tiana has committed some crimes, but that's not any reason for you to come and like kill all of these people on this reservation who had nothing to do with her, because we do see that she's surveying, I guess, after they had killed some of the Native Americans after that ambush. They're just kind of surveying the damage. Their family members are there. Obviously, everybody's super, super heartbroken. She looks upset, right? It's not like, it doesn't look like she's indifferent to them. So right now it looks like she may understand just kind of like their plight, may side with them. But again, like you said, Tristan, whiteness will protect whiteness. So we don't know how far she may empathize, or if she'll be able to empathize more because she's a woman. I don't know if like he'll explore like that type of like dynamic where, you know, a woman marshal is able to be more empathetic because she's a woman. I really don't know what Taylor's going to do with this. Frank, what are your thoughts?
I think it also helps because Mamie Fawcett, she was visibly bothered by the first encounter with that marshal. She didn't like the cut of his jib, the way that he kind of just undressed her in a most disrespectful way, like didn't value her authority. Already he shit in the wrong pot with Mamie. Yep. So I think from that point, just not on some like pure respectful shit, she not fucking with him. And like now I think that gives her even added motivation to bring those guys down. I do trust her because when the Native American, I can't remember his name, but when Native American asked her if you knew these people, if you knew the priests and the marshal, she said, yeah, I met them. Like she admitted to that. So I feel like if she was trying to protect them or didn't care, she wouldn't even give that other information out. I think she means well. I think she looked perturbed and heartbroken by what she saw. I didn't realize how many kids that marshal killed. Yeah. Like he killed, like I thought it was like 2 or 3. It looked like it was 5 or 6 kids that were on the ground dead. So I think more so too, like this is her territory, right? Like people are like, this is an elected position in Oklahoma. I'm sure she was voted to be in that position, and to have all this mayhem happen in her territory, it's an offense to her. She's pissed off about it. You know, she's sworn the badge to protect these people, white and Native Americans alike, and for this mayhem to happen on her backyard, I think she's pissed off, and I think she's taking it personal.
Yeah, good point. So we'll see what happens there. I'm so glad we didn't get to see the priest and the marshal in this episode, because I couldn't stand to see their faces after what they did last time. So we got a little bit of a break from them. And then we also get to see in Montana, going back to the Yellowstone, Jake and crew are back. Jacob and crew are back with Kara at the ranch. They've brought the family back. Things don't look really great for our friend Zane. Tristan, tell us a little bit about that. Like, what are your thoughts on, will he recover?
I think Zane's about to go through it. Big props to Jacob for like recognizing very quickly what the situation was about to entail, and like immediately going into like coach mode. It was like he went straight into head coach mode. Like, hey, bro, this is gonna be rough. Like they're gonna have to drill into your brain, my boy. And here's the worst part: you're gonna have to be awake for that. You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, like again, it's dire situations. Like, and knowing Zane, and again, Zane is somebody who's come up in this life, who is used to the hardships, and like they just have this ethos of like, okay, this is just what it is. Let's do it, you know. And you contrast that with Elizabeth, you know, who again we talked our last 2 episodes essentially about like how she isn't instinctually built for these things, right? It's not inherent within her to like fully go through the struggle, regardless of what sacrifice it's going to take, you know. And that's just something that she's going to have to continue to develop if she's going to stay. You know, we don't know that yet. So Zane, yeah, man, like. I think so much, at least before, I knew something was up with his brain, the way they talked about it last episode. I didn't know it was like to that degree. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how he survives that regardless. pulling for my boy, in the family. But I simply don't think it's going to end well for Zane.
I'm so glad that the doctor knew what was happening and wasn't like, oh, I don't know, let's just kind of like bleed him out to see what's wrong with him. It might be the vapors or something. I'm glad that even though it's rural Montana, that the doctor actually had some sense and was like, oh, it sounds like a subdural hematoma. This is what's going to need to happen, instead of just being there and being like, I don't know what's wrong with him. His brain has some kind of disease. I don't know. Frank, what were your thoughts on just kind of that whole thing?
Tell you, man, if Alex put up 18 and 10 in this first quarter of episode 3, the doctor put up 15 and 15 in the second half. Like, I mean, think about it. To go through this winter storm to get to that ranch in the first place, to like administer the rabies shot for Elizabeth, and think that his job is done, only to find out that he has to give a prognosis and diagnose this rancher with, I think, hematoma, the swelling of the brain, like, and to like possibly have to like do this procedure with no anesthesia. If he pulls this off, he might be the MVP of season two. Like, this is two remarkable prognosis, two remarkable feats that a doctor would not even his own. Go ahead.
I want to cut you off, but let me deduct some MVP points.
Okay.
If I bring a nurse along with me on a house call,
I live without her.
I feel like my main job is to make sure she returns. You know what I'm saying?
In one piece.
I'm going to do my best to make sure she's not exposed on the couch. Like, let's get her into a bed. You know what I'm saying? Let's do that. Let's get a shotgun next to her. Let's make sure like she's protected in some type of way. Yes. This will be like scoring 55 in a game, but you gave up 30. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, like great offense, some better defense. I want to throw that in there.
You make very compelling point. Kara did come in for the save, and she did refuse the room that Kara offered.
True.
For her. So I mean, it wasn't like
that's poor. You're a poor host. I insist
that you can have my own room. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had instances of wolves on our territory. You know what I'm saying? Like rabid wolves who are hungry, and we did not kill the wolf that bit, Elizabeth. Like, let's make sure that you're
0-star rating for the Yellowstone Lodge. 0 stars.
Come on, man. You got to make your teammates better than that.
Okay.
Neither one of them made their teammates better than that one.
I will regulate him to 6 men on the bench, but I will say this: if Zane survives this like craniotomy or whatever they call that, and he survives and he makes a full recovery, bro, he has to be at least second team all NBA, dog. At least second team all Yellowstone. If this man survives his surgery,
what would the nurse's family feel about that vote? Mommy's coming back with no neck. Like this, I'm sorry. I get it.
Ate her stomach.
Yes, I get it. But come on, we all fail.
I have no comeback for that. I have no comeback for that. We are down one nurse for sure. We are down a nurse. Yes.
Like why do you have to perform this by yourself, Doc? That's the question.
Why does Jake have to be your nurse now? He is not trained. He's probably got hypothermia. He's reliable.
Yeah, I don't see how Zane I don't think he makes it out alive, man. I think Jacob's about to inherit a woman and two kids. I really think so. Like, I don't see how he makes it through this. I don't.
Hear it. Oh, wow. Interesting.
Maybe that's who Jake marries once Elizabeth.
Thank you. Maybe John Dutton has some Asian in him. We don't know.
Hey, man.
Taylor's throwing us all kinds of curveballs.
Ooh, boy, that Asian got whitewashed away by 2020. I mean, by 2020, there ain't no Asian John Dutton. God damn. that shit got Patrick. That shit got Patrick Holmes washed away. Ain't an ounce of like. ain't a, shout to my beige guy, by the way, but ain't an ounce of Asian ethnicity in John Dutton. If that is the case.
It was also not a happy homecoming for Jake to kind of come home and see Elizabeth packing. Like, no, welcome home. I missed you. I'm so glad you're back and you're safe. She's just like, I am getting out of here. You can either come with me to Boston if you want to stay married, or you don't. So Jake's kind of dumbfounded. What do you think he's going to choose? Do you think he's going to choose to stay at the ranch, or is he going to be leaving for Boston to go after Elizabeth?
I think he stays. I think he knows the impending danger of what's coming, and Jake is a Dutton. I mean, he knows that protecting his family is his number one priority, and in proximity, Elizabeth is his family. So in his mind is that if you're leaving, you're betraying my family and walking out at the 11th hour when we need you the most. So I think it's a no-brainer. I think Jake stays, and I think Elizabeth is gone, and I think that's pretty much it.
This is setting up to me like one of them dies. That's I'm taking the minus 300 on that, whatever odds on that one. Yeah, man. I don't know if I've been kind of going back and forth. I don't know if that house can at this point take like that big of a family with, Spencer, Alexandra, potentially Jake, Elizabeth, Kara, plus I'll just added another family who probably sleeping in one of the ranch houses or whatever. I feel like one of those groups is going to go bye-bye. I don't know. I'm thinking right now is Jake and Elizabeth. We know that more violence is coming. Like, we know that there's just more things, more of this war, this Cold War, and it's kind of like actually physical war are going to happen throughout the rest of the season. So I'm skeptical about both Jake, and Elizabeth surviving that. So that's where I'm at.
Somebody else who did not survive is Luca, Spencer's companion, who made the mistake of thinking he could just kind of like outrun those, I guess it was cops or, highway patrol. I don't know who they were.
Prohibition agents.
Thank you. Yeah. That poor fool. He was so stupid. He should have just stuck with the Spencer. Frank, what were your thoughts on that scene? And did you expect Luca to hang with us for a few more episodes, or were you kind of knowing that was probably the end of the road for him?
I thought Luca at least make it a full worth.
Yeah.
It just shows me how much of a whole ass motherfucker his cousin is. His cousin knew how dire and how serious, how dangerous that path was. When you see that road literally blocked off and like dudes with Tommy guns and like loaded, you knew that was a suicide mission. It was a kamikaze mission. It wasn't meant for them to even complete. Even the guns that they had, they would have got just Swiss cheese, even if Spencer decided to stay and fight. So and it pissed me off because like Spencer went out of his way to save this man's life, right? Like he hair and high water to save this man's life, to give him a second lease on life, only for him to throw it away. But I was thinking about this last night, and I was trying to see it from Luca's standpoint. Like we don't know Luca's life in Italy prior to us seeing him, get raped in episode 1. So we don't know what he went through, how he's viewed, or what kind of life he had. But I was trying to see it from his perspective, and this is me making up like what I think his life was. I think he was a second-class citizen in Italy. I think he had purpose. I think he was deemed as a lost cause or just too weak. And you saw remnants of him not being able to defend himself throughout the first 2 episodes. And I think he was trying to prove himself and trying to find purpose and value within his own family. What I got from him is that he is somebody that even his own family, they don't respect him. And I think when he tried to commit suicide in episode 1, that was him just saying, look, I'm forgotten in this world. I have no family. I have no value. And I think him doing what he did and dying was him trying to prove himself to people that he loves but didn't love him back in that way. So thinking about that, I became very incredibly sad. He went out like a goddamn idiot. Don't get me wrong. I think Spencer did his best to try to save him, but that was just a testament of like, no matter what you do to go out and save somebody, if they don't want to save themselves, it's a lost cause. And I think Luca was just he's been battling that his whole life, it seems like, and hopefully his character can find peace now.
I think that was Luca's version of suicide. Yeah, I think he understood what Spencer understood. Like this, like you said, this was a suicide mission. It was impossible to get through. I mean, the best bet, I thought they were pulling into the house, was kind of wait out the roadblock. But Luca, like you said, he was on his own internal clock of like how he felt like things should have happened. And yeah, I think a large part of it is like, hey, I want to prove myself. But there is a concept of accepting that this is the end of the road, and like kind of choosing how you go out. And he went out like he went out, but like, I'm sure he knew. Luca knew. I don't think Luca was dumb enough to understand that, to think that there was a way out of that situation. So through it, like obviously those dudes were not accepting bribes, and I don't think Luca was charming enough to be the one to initiate those bribes. If he was, then I think his cousin would have sent him alone, or he would have. I don't even think he gave him the money. I think he gave Spencer the money. It's like I have more trust that you can get yourself out of like sticky situations, and this dude, I don't have any trust in. Like he seems green in all areas. So yeah, man, I think Luca never felt, like you said, like he never felt like he had the worth that he was looking for. I think what happened to him that, Spencer had to save him from, essentially further depleted whatever worth was left. And like, eventually they got to Texas, got to Galveston, got to his cousin, all these things. But like, I don't, without Spencer with him, I don't know how much of whatever worth was left he could have kept on by himself. So that was his way of like just getting out of it completely.
That's a good point, man. The seeing that suicide is a good point, because when we first meet him in episode 1, we don't know how many times he had been assaulted. That could have been the 20th time for all we know of him being assaulted. So like the little life or the little hope that he had of just living was probably at 1% at that point. And Spencer probably replenished him to like 10%, but he was already on suicide watch at that point, like just trying to find an end. And I think Galveston was like the last straw of like hoping to redeem some type of respect, not with his family, but within himself. It's a sad Shakespearean two episode story, man. It really is.
Yeah, I wanted to see more of him. But yeah, like you said, he probably just either thought like this is the end of the road and I'd rather go out like this, or he was just too eager to prove himself. Just wait it out with Spencer. Like that's all you had to do. But R.I.P. Luca. We barely knew you, but thanks for playing. Thanks for coming along with us. And then last scene that we see again, we see Alex. She's just kind of chilling before her train is about to depart, and she did what the conductor told her, or the employee told her not to do. Like, don't be by yourself. She was like, got to go to the restroom, got to go to the ladies' room. And then we see a sinister figure just kind of follow her in there. What are you all's predictions as to what happens? Does harm befall on Alex, or do you all think she's able to defend herself?
I think she gets robbed. I think she gets robbed blind. I think she gets beaten. And I think this next phase of her life is trying to get to Montana with nothing to her name. And that's what's gonna be the beginning of the end, I feel like, for her character. she may not make it to Montana. I've come to grips of watching that scene. I come to grips to say this may not end well as far as her ever making it to Montana. This could be one of those How I Met Your Mother. How, like, I don't know if y'all watched that show every season. Like, we thought, oh, this woman is the person that he has kids with, or this woman is the person that he's settled down with. We have to come with grips and come with a possible solution that Alex might not be the Dutton that makes it to Yellowstone and further that Dutton line.
You're very right.
I refuse. I think that everything, I'm going to go the opposite way. I think everything that Alex has gone through up to this point, meeting Spencer, making a decision to be with him. Like, is there a chance that everything Frank said is correct? I think there's a good 10 to 20% chance on that. It would be a great deep fate. But I think that two things. One, we at least need to see Spencer and Alex together again before something happens to a character. Like, again, I think that pairing is just too magical together for us to get that here. And then, like, they have this big gap and we don't even at least get to see it one more time. And two, like I said, every experience, like, she should have died in the fucking tree, It's like, if anything, she should have died in the sea. She should have died, like, all these different times. It doesn't make sense for her to, like, do all these things and not pay off. By pay off, I don't just mean like her getting to Montana and living this happily life ever after, with Spencer. But the survival skills, like, all of these things have been, like, she went from being like terrified, Spencer save me, to saving herself. You know what I'm saying? Like, when season 2 opens up and she's locked in her room, like, she's already started to develop a plan, using the resources she has. Maybe that's something she's always had, but I guarantee, like, her time with Spencer upped that to a different level. Making this journey, like, finding a way, like, she's got to this point. Now it's time to, like, use those survival skills. Like, she's seen Spencer fight. I'm not saying she's learned how to fight from him or that he's training her like it's Kill Bill, but, like, she has the will to defend herself. And I think she has the will to, like I said at the beginning, like, to get shit done, and right now, like, we can already tell, like, she's going to have to fight for her life or fight for her body. Like, she's going to have to fight for something in that bathroom. And I think she's going to use whatever is necessary. Maybe she loses some money out of it. I don't know. Maybe, some of her things, maybe she might get robbed a little. She's going to lose something, right? But I think she's ultimately going to do what I think Elizabeth wouldn't do. And so much of these first, 3 episodes have been showing you the difference between the two. And really there's a difference between two prototypes of personalities and just people. Like, two women who come from privilege, young women who come from privilege. One is willing to fight through whatever to get to where she needs to get to. And one is willing to fight up until a certain point. And I think her breaking point is way longer than Elizabeth's. So I think she's either going to find a way to use whatever she has around her to beat the shit out of old dude, or she's going to kill him. But she's going to make it to Montana, goddamn.
Now, with what I said, first off, I hopefully and desperately agree with you that happens. The reason I said what I said, because Game of Thrones has ruined me as far as, like, hoping for characters and like prepping characters up. Like, Ned and the Red Wedding has changed me forever. Jon Snow's first death changed me forever. So now when I watch characters that I love or beloved, I always there's like a 30% percentile of me that says, you know what, if this person dies, I'm not gonna let it break me, because I've been broken before and I don't want this to happen again. So I refuse to let it break me. I'm going to brace for this. I'm going to go back and watch previous episodes of this beloved character in case this is the end of this character. But no, I do agree with Tristan. The reason I'm trying to bear myself for the absolute fucking worst. of how this story can take a goddamn turn. So yeah, Marcy, your thoughts?
Frank, that is some trauma that you have there. I am so sorry that George R.R. Martin has traumatized you so much, but I completely agree. Yes. Definitely have shows where you're like, I love this character, and then they kill them and you're like, damn it, I can never love again. I sincerely hope that if he attacks her, please do not like show another like sexual assault. Taylor, like, no, that is enough. I do not need more of that kind of trauma. I hope she kicks his ass. I hope that maybe there's other women in there and they're able to like protect each other, fight him off. I hope that maybe there's an attendant in there and he's going to be like, oh, you know, there's more than one person in here. I can't attack. But for the love of God, Taylor, do not traumatize us even more, because we cannot handle it, especially if it's Alex, right? Like somebody that, again, like Tristan loves her. I think a lot of the audience has really come to love Alex. So, I mean, and he looks skeezy though. So it doesn't look like he's going to follow her in there to like help her out, right? Like he is going in there for nefarious purposes. And I hope she kicks his ass. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I think it's important to talk about who we didn't see in this episode. Obviously, no Banner. And man, I just forgot my boy name.
Whitfield.
There we go. I was gonna say Woodfield. No Banner.
Whitman, after the author today, Whitman was in my mind.
Yeah. We don't see them. We don't really get to see a lot of Jacob. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, we don't see, you know, anybody in town. Obviously, Jacob and the crew are coming from the town and battling through that snowstorm to get there. Like, this was a really female-centric episode. Like me and Marcy talked about at the beginning. Like, I think the reason why this episode was so female-dominated was because this is a chance for Taylor Sheridan to like heavy-handedly discuss like the plight of women in that particular time, you know, in different situations, immigration, you know, maternity issues, things like that. Medically, you know, like the way that a lot of women did not have a say in what happens to their bodies as far as vaccines, shots, all these things. You know, women traveling alone in different places, like so much of the I guess you want to say the empathy that we kind of see through the female marshal, you know, just kind of seeing like in a way that a male marshal probably would be like, oh, these dead Native children. Oh, well, you know, like she can feel it, you know. So we see that through her really deep gaze. Reminds me of her character on Dexter so badly. Mm-hmm. So we see just the plight of women in different areas in this episode. You know, so I really love. I won't say I love the episode because it's kind of traumatizing in different ways, and I was on edge. I feel like the entire time, but I do like the fact that Taylor, throughout, like all these shows are like supremely male, right? Supremely masculine, right? They paint a picture of like what masculinity looks like over the course of several centuries, you know what I'm saying? In this universe. And it is refreshing to see, okay, let me dedicate some time to like what women have gone through to tell this larger message. Again, but no more rapes, please. Thank you.
I agree. Please, between 1923, Paradise, and White Lotus, right now I cannot take any more like drama. I'm on edge. So I mean, obviously 1923 is not going to be the show to like calm me down. I'm definitely going to be more trauma, but please, no more rapes, Taylor, and just let Alex and Spencer just see each other one more time if you're going to kill either of them off. But, you know, don't kill them off. Kill off other characters that we don't care about.
I will say this, man. Taylor, you're a cold piece of work, bro, to have all of this plight in episode 2 of Women's History Month of March.
Thank you.
Cold piece of work, bro. You couldn't wait till April to have all this shit going on with our beloved female characters of February. You got to wait to the middle of March to do all this shit. You're a cold piece of work, bro. You're a cold piece of work, dog. No, I think I think it was very important to really put the forefront for the women in this episode, and hopefully to see more strength and obstacles being conquered by these women moving forward. I've had my fair share of I'm done watching women struggle and get abused and assaulted, and I need, whether it's for Mammy or Alex, I need to see triumph, even a small victory to keep my hopes alive for like a nice happy ending for at least some of these women moving forward in this series. Is just there needs to be a payoff, and I think with Taylor's character, especially with the women, it's an elongated path and road for a lot of these characters of the female genealogy in this show, and I hope that we do see some triumph pretty soon. Again, Marcy, thank you so much for hosting today's episode. Tristan, thank you for your deep literary thoughts as usual. For more episodes, man, we'll start doing every other Monday because we have a lot of projects coming up. We have Daredevil that we're gonna cover. We have The Last of Us in April. We got some movies coming up that we want to cover as well. So we'll be every other Monday moving forward. Right now, please subscribe to the channel. And again, if there's any shows or movies that you want to talk about, please leave a comment. We're on YouTube as well, Spotify, Apple Podcasts as well, at Watcher's Basements. Last I checked, we're at 437 subscribers. So road to 500 is alive and strong. Again, this is for episode 2 of 923. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks to cover episode 3 and 4. For myself, for Marcy, and for Tristan, this is Watchers in the Basement, 923, season 2. We will see y'all on the flip side.